Welcome everyone to the Fourth Tavern podcast. We are a family-friendly Wheel of Time podcast that we like talking about this awesome series. We've been talking about the Eye of the World for the past while, and we're back to finish up these final chapters of the Eye of the World, where they finally, the group finally ends their quest. They finally reach the Eye of the World, and of course, it's not smooth sailing when they get there. There's got to be some controversy and some struggles, and we're going to get into that, what that is, who's there at the Eye of the World. Last episode we talked about the Green Man, who's kind of guarding that and making sure that it's protected, but they are followed there. So we'll get into that and more. We'll do a wrap up of the series, of this first book of the series, what we thought about it, and we liked it, all that stuff. So we want to thank you guys for joining us here on the Fourth Tavern podcast. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel already, we are the Credible Nerds, and we are hosting this Wheel of Time podcast, the Fourth Tavern. So that's why you're probably on the Credible Nerds channel, but definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be posting Wheel of Time content moving forward, so you can just follow the playlist or look for the playlist for Wheel of Time, and you'll get all your Wheel of Time info. So subscribe, like the video if you do, comment on the video if we are talking about something that's interesting to you. Join in on the conversation. If you have questions, let us know. If you think we're full of crap and disagree with us, let us know, because this is a good forum to do that. So we do want to thank you for watching. If you're listening to this audio podcast, do the same. Leave a review for our audio podcast and also join in on YouTube. So thanks guys for listening and watching. We really appreciate it. We've had some good comments overall for the past couple of years about this. So I do have my fellow Taviran with me. My name is Justin, and I have my Taviran brothers here with me, Kyle and Mark. How are you guys doing?
Hey, good.
Hey guys, doing good.
Awesome. So we recently reread these last few chapters 50 through the end, and there's some good stuff here, and there's also some confusing stuff here, at least on my part. Maybe you guys can explain it for me and help me understand better. But like I said, the last chapter, they make it to the Eye of the World. They meet the Green Man. He welcomes them. It's a nice, peaceful place, but someone shows up. Some people show up. But first, they actually go inside the Eye of the World. It's a cave, a cavern. They go in. It's like a tunnel it sounds like it's built, it was made, because it's just the symmetrics of it all was pretty symmetrical and like a construction type thing. So they delved into it. They go down a little bit into the cavern, and there's a pool of pure saidin. Right? And do you guys know the history of like how this got here?
Yeah, right. So the Green Man kind of explains it, right?
Yeah.
After the breaking, the men started going mad, and so they got. Now I can't remember. Was it 100 people total, or was it 100 men and 100 women? So,
100 total.
And this is 100 total. So 50 men, 50 women. Has to be. You find out about that later. But when you link and they do things together, there has to be at least an equal amount of men, but there always has to be, if there's more one way, it has to be a woman, right? There can't be more men than women, but there can be more women than men.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm pretty sure that's it. And so they created a pool of saidin that was pure, that was completely void of any madness. Am I right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. It didn't have any of the taint, and that's what's so special about it, because this is after the breaking, like you said, right?
Yep. And the taint, I can't remember how much you know about it right now, right? But just kind of backstory.
Yeah. Tell us.
When they locked the Dark One into his prison, his backlash basically poisoned saidin, right? And as men used it, they would go mad. It would just slowly start making them go mad. And so that's the whole thing with, they talk about, stealing, gentling the men and things like that. That's why. It's because they don't want them to go mad and destroy the world. So This was made for that, and apparently it took so much power that it killed all 100 of these people just by creating it, which probably means they burned up, right? They burned out. Well, not even burned out. They just killed them because they utilized so much power. So, kind of gives you the level. And another thing to think of is that the Aes Sedai, in the Age of Legends, when this was created, were much more powerful, pound for pound, right, than in general, than the Aes Sedai now.
Mm-hmm.
So, quite a bit of power.
Yeah. And do you have anything to add to that, Kyle?
No, I was going to basically say the same thing. It's interesting to see how much power it took to create this small pool, right? And then later in the book, when we get a little bit further along, there's when more Sidene is cleaned, how much power it takes there too. And so, anyways, don't want to spoil anything there, but we can talk about it later.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was created, the whole purpose of the Eye of the World was created so at the last battle, they would have enough clean Sidene to use to seal the Dark One back into his prison. So it was meant to be used at the last battle, so that's why I was confused. And so I really looked into it, and it sounds like and what happened was Balzamon set it up. He put out those rumors that we talked about in previous episodes. Like, hey, the Dark One is going to blind the Eye of the World. He told the Tree Brother, not the Tree Brothers, the Loyals
Aiel.
people.
Ogier,
as well as the Aiel, yeah. He kind of put out the rumors that that's going to happen, so they would go there. So then what happens next would happen. So then the Sidene would get used prematurely, so then the Dark One would have an advantage. So that's why this was just sitting there untouched, and that's why it got used up in the first book out of a 15-book series.
That's the interesting thing, though, is like, given their experience with the Dark One and the Forsaken, that's not a lot of Sidene.
I did, yeah, that thought crossed my mind as well.
That's just like, you'd think that, I mean, that's such a major oversight, in my opinion, right?
Okay.
It's like, how, given their experience with the Forsaken, with the Dark One, how much power was wielded? I mean, you have this little tiny pool of Sidene. Were they? I mean, that was actually one of the questions I had. Is like, why wasn't there more? Were they thinking that, they just need to kind of reseal the Dark One's prison and kind of move on, kind of a thing?
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't know. That's always kind of been a glaring oversight from the 50 men and women that sealed that, or that created that pool, as to why it was so small. Maybe it's all they could muster. Maybe that's just all they could do.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts, Mark?
This is the hard part, because this kind of goes off into like a land of make believe. Not that this is a real book.
Well, it is a fantasy.
This didn't really happen, people. Okay, this is not our history.
Well, we're in the 7th age, right? This is the 3rd age, so it is our history. We just don't know it.
Yes. What's the town that they grew up in? Emmons Field?
Emmons Field.
Yeah.
There is a place. I was gonna send it to you. There's like a place up in. So we live in Utah. There's a place by us called Ogden, right? So Ogden, Utah. And I drove by, and there was like I don't know. I can't remember if it was the name of a, I don't know, business or something, but it said Emmons Field on it somewhere in it. And I was going to send it. I'm like, we really are in the 7th age, you know?
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. So
Legends.
Anyways,
Legends
I know. So what I think, in my mind, was that we don't really know if it was made for that reason. We assume it was made for that reason, right? But like you said, there wasn't enough Sidene in it really to do that, right? You can't shore up the Quendalar with it, right? Because he kind of talks about that. It rebuffs the Quendalar. So, what were they hoping he would do more than the Quendalar? I happen to think it was supposed to be used for something. Maybe this, but I don't think it was really made for the last battle, because the Horn of Valir was found inside.
That's a good point.
Because if you need the horn to fight the last battle, but you have to use it before you get the horn, like what are they hoping for? Like you use it correctly, almost win, and then they come and mop up. I mean, so I've always kind of assumed that what it was really for to be used for was lost, in the writings because they found 112 pages or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
um, but we don't really actually know why, and that myth and legend just kind of passed down. This is what it is, and this is what it's for. But
Mm-hmm.
that may not have been actually what it was for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess they could have used the horn because there's going to be a last battle. So they seal the Dark One in, but there's still all these, Trollocs and whatever fighting around so they could, I don't know. It would make sense to use it before, like when they're coming instead of after the Dark One's sealed and then fight. Yeah.
Mhm.
That is I don't know. I wouldn't call it a plot hole, but it is a question.
Yeah.
Like why is it in the water or the sardine instead of on top of it? So,
Yeah.
anyways, some good speculations there. So they go down and look at it. The group looks at it like, oh, that's cool. And Rand starts to freak out. He's like, he feels the power. He's like, oh no, I can channel. I'm the evil guy. I'm gonna go crazy. All this. So he starts to overthink it, right? So then they go back out, and they're out there talking to the Green Man when the two Forsaken show up, Agenor and Bartholomew. Bartholomew?
Othamel.
Othamel.
Is it? Right,
Yeah.
Othamel. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. So they show up. Othamel can't talk. He has this weird mask on. He's like super old and wrinkly, but the mask is young. And I wasn't sure if the mask was like a fixed face or when he smiled, the mask smiled type thing. Did you guys figure, what that is all about, or does it matter? It was just creepy in my mind. So
Yeah, it was like a smiley face. I was like kind of thinking like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type thing,
yeah,
right? I don't know either. It never explains it. I don't think it ever comes back and like rounds up to it. But yeah, like because the face was like young and like a smile or something,
yeah,
but everything else was completely old and worn. So I'm like, oh, well, that should tell us a little something about what he did before he showed up.
yeah.
Like I wonder if it's kind of a creation from himself, right? I mean, because you read in the White Bible, and oh, by the way, folks, I got one, even though mine's blue. But you read in there that Balthamel was a really handsome, good-looking guy, right?
Okay, yeah.
And because he was, when the Dark One was sealed, he was sealed close, or Balthamel was so close to the surface, right, of the seal, he continued to age, similar to Agenor, but more so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just a shot at his vanity, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Saying I
used to look good.
I used to look good, but now I look terrible, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's still creepy nonetheless.
Yeah. So he shows up with Agenor. Agenor does all the talking. So Mark, you're a big Forsaken expert. You know a lot of the ins and outs of these guys. Who's the most powerful? Who's relationships? Who they work with, who they work against, all that stuff. So tell us about Agenor and Bartholomew.
All right. So all we really have to go off of is a couple, lines from the books, and then what's in the White Book, right? It's one thing to note that the Forsaken, even though they all fight for the dark side, are not necessarily allies. So, I feel like that we see these two mostly because they both released at the same time, and they recognized, hey, we need to go do something about this, and did it. I think if they were released any other time, they would have worked against each other, right? But anyways, so we'll kind of talk about, so Agenor, he is known to be the second most powerful Forsaken. So he is up there. He's right below Balzamon or Ishmael.
Mm-hmm.
Did I just give something up?
No, I already said it. I already gave it away.
Okay. Okay. So he is, he's right below him, but I mean, he's powerful enough that he can go toe to toe, right? I mean, in this excerpt here, it talks about he went toe to toe, blow to blow with the Dragon Reborn. All right, Luther and Telamon. And Luther and Telamon and Ishmael are thought to be equal.
Mm-hmm.
So he is very powerful in his own right. It's kind of cool where he came from. So in the Age of Legends, he was a biologist, right? He was a well-known biologist, and the way they did things to kind of show you how distinguished he was is that they gave names based on how distinguished you became.
Yeah.
So you were born with 2 names. I think everyone was born with 2 names, and then you get the 3rd name by distinguishing yourself above and beyond all your peers, which is crazy to do because everybody has powers, right? Everybody's good, everybody's whatever. And so his name is they have really weird names, by the way. His name is Ishar Morad Chuaim. I don't know how to spell it. Chuain. So if you can pronounce that, let us know. Anyway, so he's got the 3rd name. He was very distinguished. What they do know about him is that he joined the dark side. I'm aside from
Sith
Jedi.
Lord.
But he became a Forsaken Sith Lord before before the War of Power. The War of Power is what really set off, the big war. And they know this because Trollocs were his creation, and they showed up the first day of the War of Power. So they must have been breeding in numbers, before that. But we also know he made creations before the Trollocs, right? We see some of them when they're walking through the forest. So he had joined the Forsaken long before the War of Power. We don't really know how long. He was not a leader. He was not a field commander. He wasn't, like one of the guys that were leading charges. But apparently he commanded enough respect that he could almost get what he wanted. There's a note in here that says he basically transcripted? I don't know the word. He basically had them send 10,000 prisoners a day to work on his experiments. So that tells you how evil he is, how, fallen he was, right? I mean, this guy was pretty bad. So that's what we know about Agenor. Quite powerful. He was trapped on the surface as well, not as far as Balthamel, but close enough that he came out at the same time. Balthamel, there's really not a whole lot known about him.
Yeah.
They think he was a historian, I think is what it says. He did not have a 3rd name. His name was Evil Raman. Evil Raman. Anyway, so he just had the 2 names. They think he might have served as a governor under the Dark One. They think that he might have. I think the most likely explanation that they say for him is that he was basically a spy master, right? So he had a lot of spies, but he was definitely a good-looking guy, and he was like, it talks kind of about his vanity of his looks, and that may have been why he left the light side of the light, is so that he could live forever and keep his good looks, I guess. So, anyways, that's what we know about them in the past. Not a whole lot, and like I said, if you pick up the book, the White Book, it talks about all of them, talks about the men and the women. Kind of a fun read because this stuff you never really hear about in the books.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to get a little background there, who they are, where they come from, what they did. So basically these 2 that died, Agenor, very powerful. We don't really know how powerful Balthamel was. Obviously he was a Forsaken, so he's quite powerful in his own right. But they both die.
Yep.
So it's kind of an interesting thing. I think my biggest question I've always had about this whole thing is how the heck did they know where to go?
Well, they did say that they followed the dagger, Matt's dagger. It was an evil that they recognized and were able to follow it. So that's why Balzamon, the theory that Balzamon sent out those rumors so the group would go, so then they could follow him there. But that would mean he knew years in advance that Matt would get the dagger and
Right.
follow him. But he did say we followed him, and they point to Matt, and he has the dagger. So that's my theory.
No, that would make sense. That would make sense.
But is it, and so it's kind of weird, right? Because the dagger comes from Mashadar, right?
Right. Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the dark, right? It's not really the
Yeah.
same power. It's
This is
sort
different.
of greed. Yeah, and so that's why I've always thought it was such a strange, correlation there. Like, oh, we just followed this guy. We knew right where to go.
Yeah.
And
Well, let me look at it real quick if I can.
and I thought traveling. Remind me if I'm right. I assumed traveling because they had to travel. Nobody knows what that is if you've never read these books before. But they had to travel there. But I thought you could only travel somewhere where you knew,
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't have known the green. Like they wouldn't have known the Green Man's Grove.
Yeah. So where
Yeah.
were they? Where did they come out at? Is a good
Yeah.
question.
So that's always weirded me out. How exactly did they get there?
Yeah.
Like they just knew where to go. Someone told them. I don't know. Like that part's always weirded me out. But
Mhm.
they showed up, and it was kind of a cool fight. I like that. I remember reading the book when I compare it to all the rest of the book's fights. It's a little bit lame sauce, but
Yeah.
for the book one, it was actually a pretty good climax.
Yeah.
Okay. So I found it. Lan asks, "How did you come here?" And Agenor says, "He guided us," and he pointed to Matt. An old thing, an old friend, an old enemy, but he is not the one we seek. So they're not after Matt, but they followed him. That's the reason.
An old friend and an old enemy.
Mm-hmm. An old thing, an old friend, an old enemy.
Do you think they have insight into what Matt actually is?
So you don't think it's the dagger? Do you think it's like his previous, like his reborn person?
Because I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but later Matt gets a lot more knowledge, right, from a lot of different sources, right? Do you think they are tying it to that? I don't know. That's kind of a reach. Do they have any knowledge to that?
Maybe. I've always thought that he wasn't necessarily like the dragon reborn or whatever, but he's a reborn soul that was important. Because I think even before he got the extra knowledge later on, there are hints that he was someone important previous.
Right.
At least that's the impression I got. It doesn't come out and say that. That's kind of like, because there would be statements I'm like, oh, what does that mean? He was like a reborn soul too that was important back in the day, or I don't know. It could be. Mark?
Well, it could be this. I just don't know how much to say. Plug your ears. Ear muffs.
Yeah, well, let's just say spoilers for the series right now. If you want to, keep away from spoilers, skip the next couple minutes.
Yes. So we know that Ishmael could leave the prison every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
And the general idea is he left during the Trolloc Wars, which started the Trolloc Wars. Well, during the Trolloc Wars, Mordith went to Eredal. How do you say it? Eredal?
Yeah.
And and he corrupted the king, corrupted the place, kind of helped participate, to start its fall. So it could be the Ishmael or Balzamon helped corrupt him as a dark friend and send him. But then he became more and he was almost like a different kind of dark that was enemy to their dark. So an old friend, an old enemy, that could be it, right? You know what I mean? Like he used to fight for him, then he became an enemy, but still served our purposes.
Interesting.
Yeah, because then when these two get out, Balzamon meets up with them or they talk somehow, and he's like, hey, he kind of tells them, this is what I've been doing the last couple thousand years. And this guy Mordith, he might help you. I don't know. I'm sure there was some communication there about stuff. So yeah, that could work. I like it. So they show up. The Green Man grabs Balthamel, and
I think Baltimore attacks the Green Man first with fire, doesn't he?
yes, he starts him on fire, but then Green Man grabs him and
Right.
does the Swamp thing where he sends plants into the guy and kills him.
It like shocks everybody.
Yeah, he
Everybody's
sends
like, I mean, even the Forsaken.
Yeah.
Agonor sits there's like, holy crap.
yeah. So it's like plants and fungi. That's a big thing nowadays. Is people can die from fungus, so it's kind of similar to that. And so he dies. Green Man dies. Well, is dying at that point. But then Agonor is still there, and he's like Mark was saying, he's so powerful that he stops Nynaeve, he stops Egwene, he battles Moraine. She tries to open up a pit underneath him with fire, and he just walks through it. And then Rand and Egwene take off running, but he's after Rand, and so he follows Rand, and Moraine is defeated. She's able to slow him down. I did like that she didn't defeat him, right? Because that would have been not very believable. So she did slow him down. So it's good to note that she was powerful enough to do that. But he keeps following Rand up. He runs up on top of this cliff thing, and he gets caught there. And while he's up there, this part was always interesting, and it comes up later in the books that he sees that as Agonor is approaching him, telling him, it's useless, and I'm going to defeat you. He sees the string of sighting coming out from behind him, but we see that it's white, it's light. So he's accessing that pool of Saidin. I don't know. Did that make sense to you guys? Or like, how did he know to do that? Did he like go in the cave first and then saw it? Or because he knew that he had to maybe he knew what's inside already, but how would he just know how to access it, I guess, is my question.
How would Rand know how to access
Agonor.
Agonor,
he was using it first.
Right.
He was filling himself up with it.
I think Balzamon says it, right?
Does
His
he?
greed. Yeah, right. He's like, I knew his greed would get him.
Oh, yeah, afterwards. Okay.
And I think this is why. There's something to be said, and some of this hasn't been introduced yet, between the one power and the true power.
Right.
Right? Now, the true power is power given to the Forsaken by the Dark One. They're given access to it. They don't have to access Saidin or Saidar. I think at this point that what we're seeing there is him accessing Saidin without the corruption or without the pull of the true power of anything, right? Because all the Forsaken are completely greedy. They all want to be in charge. They don't want to serve each other. They don't want somebody to become nameless. You guys don't know what that is, but right? They don't want that. They want to be the guy in charge. So I feel like that this was Agonor thinking, I'm going to take this power. I'm going to seal the Dark One. And then I am unobstructed to do what I want.
Yeah.
Right?
Because then if the Dark One's in prison still, then so is all the other Forsaken.
Yeah.
Except for him and Ishamael.
Yeah. And he can't use the true power to do it, right? The Dark One's not going to let him use his own power to box him in, but he can use this power on top of his already a numerous power to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So and that's why I think that's why Balzamon said he was greedy. He could have just killed you, but he was greedy because he accessed this power which you could also access and take from him and steal it from him and cut him off from it. Whereas if he used the true power, he couldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, that makes sense now. So then Rand notices that, and it looks like Saidin just kind of naturally flows towards him. Because once he notices it, he doesn't like try to access it, I don't think. Like a stream just comes towards him, and he's like, he feels it. He feels the light. He's like, ooh, this is power. This is true power. And he's able to, this is when he gets the sword and Does he cut off the stream there, or is that with Balzamon? I can't remember.
I think it's with Balzamon.
Okay, so he sees it, he notices it, but then he's transported to meet with Balzamon.
Well, doesn't he? So he steals it from Agenor, and then he burns Agenor up, doesn't he? Right, and so the power comes from Agenor to Rand, and then there's a portion that says, so yeah, Rand notices that Agenor's face is no longer withered, the face of a strong man in his prime. As they both struggle, flames begin to shoot from Agenor's mouth, and he's consumed by fire.
Okay. Yeah. So does Rand kill him, or just the power kills him?
I think that's a good question. I wouldn't think the power kills him because, I mean, he's an experienced not Aes Sedai, but he's an experienced user, right? Yeah. And so I think it's Rand. He
would be an Aes Sedai, right?
Yeah, I mean, he would be. And so, but I think it's Rand stealing the power and then like starting to feel its limits, kind of a thing, right? That burns out Agenor.
Okay. Okay, so Agenor is killed, and then I was confused how this happened, but then he's transported to meet with Balzamon. And apparently the theory is it's Teleron Rioid, the dream world.
Nobody knows. In the end of the day, right, nobody knows.
Yes.
Because in the last book, right, the last time people talk to each other, Rand says, hey, I never understood how you made that happen. I never, and kind of basically asked him, how did you do it? And he didn't answer. He moved on, right? So we don't actually know how any of this happens other than it happens. I think it happens for the next couple books.
Yeah.
Through book 3. And then we don't see it anymore for reasons to be known.
Yes. But there has to be some alternate reality, pocket reality, dream world. It has to be somewhere. It's not just in their minds.
And it's noted that so Rand, he's not just poof there, he hears a voice, right? Yes. And he climbs towards it.
Yes, there's like stairs.
I think so.
Is that the creator's voice? I don't think that's ever defined.
I think I thought it was Balzamon's voice saying they're talking to him, and so he climbs towards it. But before he gets there, after he kills Agenor, he wants to be away, right? And then that's when he goes and helps the troops and Faldara. But we can come back to that. But once he gets done, he hears that voice, and I'm wondering if it's kind of the whole I can't bring you here, but you can come here yourself kind of an idea, right? And so to your point, maybe it is Teleron Riyadh, but it's not actually moving Rand, it's showing Rand how to get there. And then he, unknowingly gets there and finds Balzamon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the previous times it's always when they're asleep.
Right.
So he accesses in the flesh wherever he goes.
Right.
But the voice, Rand thinks it's the last battle.
Right.
Because there's a battle, he just fought the Forsaken and, has all the elements. But the voice tells him not here or not yet, right? It's not time. So that makes me think it's the creator. Yeah. But it could be Balzamon calling him forward to where he's going.
Right.
Because he's not ready to fight the last battle. He's not powerful enough. So, yeah, it could be. Any thoughts on that, Mark? Additional thoughts?
No, yeah. I think it just kind of comes down like that really wasn't the last battle. I think it was this. I think that was the accessing the Eye of the World was the start leading to the last battle. It was the first thing that needed to happen, right? Before anything else. Right. That's what I think. And so, and I think Ishmael knew that. He 100% knew that. And I think, that's part of why, I set this all up. I led you here. Because he knows that. He knows, like, hey, we got to start here. And then once this happens, and this gets into some crazy philosophy too, and some stuff that's a little out of this book, but he knows he has lived this life a million times. He knows that the 7 ages come and go, right?
Mhm.
Like he has said that before. Like, I keep getting reborn. I want this to end one way or the other. Either kill me for good or
Yeah.
let me win,
Oh.
right? And so for him, I think I've been here before. This is what starts it. Let's just get it over with.
Mhm. Well, that's a good point too. Um, so he is transported to the Tarwin's Gap to fight. And any idea how that was? He there in reality? I guess he was, because the Bordermen saw someone they didn't know it was him at the time. So how he traveled there? I guess because it's a long ways away. And
It says that he wishes to be away from the mountaintop because he had just burnt up Agenor, right?
mhm.
So he wants to go, and so given the fact that he wants to go, he wants to be there or wants to be somewhere else, and then he is somewhere else, could be a form, of traveling,
Yeah.
right? And
I
so,
mean,
sorry, go ahead, Mark.
we saw that. We saw that with Avienda, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He just figured, like it just happened. So I mean, it's possible, but it almost seems more like he was like there in spirit, but not in body. But people saw
Right.
him, right? They explained it really weird.
Mhm.
Right. But he has tangible. I mean, we can get to this in a minute. He has tangible effects on the battlefield while he's
Yeah.
there.
Go ahead.
And so, anyways, he gets there and he sees, the troops, the troops from Faldar are preparing for like a final charge. They've already been hammered,
Mhm.
right? And there's not much left of them. But anyways, he gets there and is notices that they're regrouping for a final charge, and he's all of a sudden is noticed by everybody.
Yeah.
Right? They notice him I don't know if he's in the sky or where he's at, right? But they notice him, right? And he basically becomes full of the power, right? And he starts using it.
Mhm.
And so he destroys, and the Dark One's army here, this army of all these, Shadow Spawn with Murdral and Drakkar and Trollocs, and basically it's all there. Like, first he strikes down all the Drakkar and they all fly down,
was
right?
cool.
From, with lightning and other stuff like that. And, kills all the Murdral, and then he gets, then he like starts pounding on the earth, right?
Yeah.
And, the earth comes up and starts destroying and decimating the Trolloc army, right? And so, I mean, it's still there, right? He doesn't kill all of them, right? But he kills enough of them to where, the Borderlanders can finish the rest. And then that's when he hears the voice and goes up and starts talking to Balzamon, I believe.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I just read this like a week ago, and I read it a million times, and it's still just confusing.
Right.
And I think you're right. It makes enough sense, but it doesn't make enough sense.
Right. It feels like there's a lot of, it feels like there's it's a lot of symbolism as well in a lot of this. And so when Robert Jordan was writing it, it was like ethereal, a lot of these things that are happening, right? Like, one minute he's on the mountaintop, the next minute he's at Tarwin's Gap, the next minute he's climbing something
to a room
with a
fireplace.
And a fireplace, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, and I think the biggest complaint or criticism, I guess, of the book is the ending. Like, it was so good, and then it's kind of like, falls off. But there's still, and I find that not only in this book, but at least the first couple books, he doesn't really write battles very well. He kind of skips around it, and it's like, oh, there's this big battle, and these are the after effects, right? So he talks about the battle in either someone's observing it or it was after the fact, and they talk about what happened. And this is an example, because Tarwin's Gap could have been an epic battle. He could have cut back and forth with, or I don't know, or Rand was there observing it for a bit at least, but he just kind of skips over that.
Kind of makes me happy we got, and I love Robert Jordan and his writing, but it kind of makes me happy we got Brandon Sanderson in the last few books.
Because he does that really well.
He does a great job.
And conflicts. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so he meets with Balzamon. They talk. Rand's finally stands up to him, full board. I think previously he would just deny him and then he'd wake up. But this time he's like all in, and he notices the black cord streaming from his behind him,
Right.
and this is when he uses the sword and cuts it, when defeating Balzamon. And he thinks he's killed the Dark One. He thinks this was the last battle. I'm done. But yet Balzamon is defeated, but he doesn't die. Right? He shows up in the next book. But this is where we start to see that Balzamon is not the Dark One. So who is he? He's another Forsaken, basically. But he's been around long enough as the main force of darkness on the earth as he comes and goes. So is he trying to take over the Dark One's place, or what do you think he's doing this time as well as the previous times that he's actually been able to be on the earth there? Do you have any thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, I think he's well aware of who he is, but I also think he knows, look, the Dark One is locked away and cannot affect the world. And I am effectively the only Dark One power. Right, he's got access to the true power, which I think is what his cord of black was. And when Rand severed it, he didn't sever his access to the power. He just severed his access to the true power, right, to the Dark One's power. And, kind of crippled him that way until the Dark One was powerful enough to give that gift out again. Because we see, he's in the next one. We see him use the power. In the next one, he can still use it. But I think that he's just at a point where I've been the only, evil guy, pulling strings, causing issues through history. And now he's kind of recognizes, okay, the seals are weakening. The Dark One's going to start coming through. I am no longer that role. I've got to, go something on, because I think they even mentioned he's insane enough to believe he is the Dark One, he's fooled himself to believe. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he's well aware. I just think that he stepped in that role while the Dark One was locked away.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and one of the seals is broken when they pull the stuff out of the Eye of the World. There's one broken one and one that's not broken, and so the seals are definitely weakening. So Balzamon is defeated, and Rand goes back to the cliff. I wonder why he ended up at the same place that he left.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just...
It makes me think... And so, tying this all in back to the original theory that it was all Teller and Riyadh, right? Maybe the whole thing was a dream, and he was able to affect the real world in his dream, by killing the Trollocs and then going and defeating Balzamon, because maybe he passes out after he defeats Agenor, right? Mm-hmm. Does the Trolloc thing, defeats Balzamon, and then wakes back up, right? Mm-hmm. Because it mentions when he kills Balzamon, something white hot smacks him, mm-hmm. and he passes out again, right? And then mm-hmm. wakes up on the mountain.
Did he use balefire in this end battle?
That's a good question.
Or was it just white fire?
To sever the true power?
No, just to fight the Trollocs and not Agenor, but Balzamon. Because there was a moment where he used white fire.
That's a good question. I don't think it was balefire. I don't know, though.
Maybe confusing.
Because it would have started no one could have blocked that, right? We would have severed him out of the timeline.
Okay. That's true.
Maybe, that's a good point, because I just assumed it was really hot fire, right? Okay. But now that I think about it, I'm like, well, it didn't say that. It said a white, and that's what it's described as, white flame.
Mm-hmm. I think balefire is definitely a white bar of light.
Yeah.
Instead of
a flame.
Yeah.
So, it's probably not. But someone uses balefire. Is it Moraine? Or maybe that's next book when you see it for the first time. Anyways.
Yeah, not yet. I think the first,
Doesn't
I don't
matter.
remember. When do we see it?
What's balefire?
Yeah. So he comes back to where he left, sees Agenor smoking ashes, and heads back down the hill, all excited that he defeated the Dark One and the last battle's over. But Moraine's like, nope, not even close. And so he goes back down. Moraine's there. Lan is there. Well, actually, he's in the cave with Matt and Rand. They went to go check on the pool and get the items out. But Egwene's there and Nynaeve's there. They're not dead. They didn't die from this overuse of power that they tried to use. Because Egwene tried to use a little bit, but she wasn't strong enough. So she couldn't use it against the Forsaken. So they didn't die at the end of this book.
But they definitely, I'm pretty sure they saw Rand as well, didn't they?
I think that's Grey Hunt.
Yeah, but like when Rand reaches out, so this is what makes me curious, right? Because when Rand reaches out to Egwene to say, "Hey, are you okay?"
Yeah.
Right? Egwene's like, for a minute,
Don't touch me.
like, don't touch me, kind of a thing, right? Eventually, she caves and gives him a hug, right? But Egwene kind of like was like hesitant. So like, where did she see? And I mean, one would assume she's hesitant because she saw Rand channeling, right? So where did she see Rand channeling? Was it on the hill battling Agenor? Was it in Tarwin's Gap? Was it, I don't know. But obviously she's seen something that scares her.
Yeah. Okay. And Nynaeve too.
Nynaeve too. Yep.
Yeah. And
doesn't Moraine say she told Lan, but Egwene and Nynaeve know too, but the boys don't.
Yeah.
Matt and Perrin do not.
Yeah. She said something like, "We didn't tell him, and it's up to you if you want to."
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because they were in the cave, so they didn't see whatever it is what they saw.
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, they come out to the cave. They got this big box and this big bundle and the two seals of the Dark One's prison. One's broken. And they open up the box, and inside is the Horn of Valir. And what do you guys think about the Horn of Valir as a story item?
I think
Knowing what we know now.
I think that thing is awesome.
Yeah.
I love the Horn of Valir.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked when we get to talk about what happens when somebody blows the Horn of Valir.
Yeah. And so it's a main plot point for the next book, the next story, and then at some point later on it comes back. But yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. Basically what it does is that people bound at the horn, I don't want to say bound to the pattern, because that's different.
Yep.
Are brought back to fight, right? I mean, they start mentioning names and stuff like that. I think the biggest name we hear is Birgitte Silverbow, right?
Yep.
And so it's pretty cool, right? It's powerful. Brings back heroes from the dead to fight for the light side and during the last battle. That's what we know so far. And
soon we will know. Don't they mention the other false dragons in this chapter or this part of the story?
Like Logain?
Oh yeah.
And Mazrim Taim? No,
not Maz.
They
not
don't
Mazrim.
say Mazrim Taim, which is weird because I guess he might not have happened yet.
Uh-oh.
Or they didn't know about him.
Yeah.
He showed, like, his name pops up either next book or book 3.
Yeah. So forget about that name, everybody.
Yeah. But I think they mentioned, because Rand's like, I'm not the Dragon Reborn. I'm not another false dragon that you can prop up like so-and-so and so-and-so.
Yeah, like Raoul Darksbane.
Yeah.
And Logain. And didn't he say Jane Farstrider?
No, I don't think so.
Did he mistakenly say Jane Farstraight? No.
I'm trying to find it here. That's right. So, yeah, it's interesting because there's been a lot of dragons, like a lot of male.
Yeah, Urian Stormbow. Is that one?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm awesome.
Yeah, we know. You remind us every time. But it's true.
I think Jay and Farstrider comes into the conversation when he's talking with Balzamon, right?
Yes,
Saying
yes.
that, hey, I'm the one who was manipulating Jay and Farstrider to, go to the steading and
Yeah.
do all that around, what we were talking about earlier. But
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So this is where Rand starts to push back against the Aes Sedai. He doesn't want to be their tool.
right,
He wants to be his own person. And he doesn't run off by himself and just do his own thing and leave Moraine there. He still is with the group, and all the group is there at the Eye of the World. Because that would be silly if he was just ran off by himself at this point, right? But he doesn't.
what?
He still uses his friends as support. But yeah, so then there's also the banner of the dragon is there. The bundle is this huge like cloth banner that they unfurl, and it's this. Nobody knew what it was. I thought that was interesting because we all know what a dragon is, but they don't. They see it and it's like, oh, what's that? I've never seen that animal before. And Moraine's like, that's the dragon. And this is the banner of the dragon reborn. And like I think Perrin's holding it and he almost drops it because like, what? I don't want anything to do with the dragon.
I don't want to touch this.
And Rand's like, I'm the dragon. So that was cool. He got that symbol that comes into play later as well. So it's interesting. I like that these artifacts, the horn is one of the major plot points for the next one. The banner comes into play, and I think in the third one. And then the seals are, just throughout the next couple books. We see more of the seals and what's going on with them. So I like that. But the pool is empty. That pure sighting is gone. It was wasted, I guess.
Yeah.
Some would say it's wasted, but I think Rand did the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they head back to Faldara. The Green Man's death kind of calmed, as well as the Forsaken's death, calmed the blight, so they were able to go back without any problems. When they left Faldara, it was winter. It was like an extended winter. They come back, spring is sprung, and things are kind of growing again, and things are warming up, and everything's cool now. So they meet up with Lord Agamor, who's still alive after the battle. And
what?
Yeah, I know. I mean, one of the greatest commanders in the world in the history, it survives.
He survives a battle?
Yes. And so they tell him, hey, we found the horn. And he's like, what? Let's use it. So they have to talk him off the cliff. But they decide to stay there for a while to recover because Moraine's spent. She's on her, she's not dying, but she needs to recover. And so they stay there for a while. The book ends with them staying at Faldara, recovering. The next book starts with them recovering at Faldara. So I think the whole time is like a month or so, maybe 2 months that they're there. And then Lan and Rand are just practicing the swords. This is where we start to see Lan influencing Rand even more, which I really liked their dynamic. He's teaching him how to be a warder, basically, how to be a borderman, a warder, the way he was brought up in the way of the Malkir and how awesome of sword fighters they are. So he's teaching him how to be that type as well. So I really like that. And they talk about, Rand's like, I'm going to leave. I need to protect those that I love, that I care about. And if I'm here, they're going to come after me. And so I'm going to leave. And it's like, okay, well, you can leave. Moraine says you can leave at any time. So if you want, you can leave. He's like, well, I'm doing it. And then there's an end conversation with Egwene where this is where they start to realize that even though they were promised to be, married earlier on, like engaged, basically, at the beginning of the book, they start to realize, hey, it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah.
And this is a bittersweet moment because I like them as a couple. It's kind of a high school romance type thing where, oh, that's cute. And then as they grow up and they start to grow apart, they start to realize they have different missions or different purposes that they got to fulfill. And there's like, hey, this probably isn't going to work out, but they still care for each other.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this final, like when they get back to Faldara and we're kind of ending the book here? What do you guys think about that?
I wish I could be. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead. Oh, you go.
All right.
Go ahead,
I was just gonna crack a joke. It's watching or just reading about Rand training with Lan. I was like, I wish I could train with Lan,
Yeah.
but also I don't wish I could train with Lan.
Yeah.
Like,
He'd work you.
He'd work you. You'd be feeling it by the end of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still wanted to see him and Matt tossed down.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
That really would be cool.
Yes, it would have. Of all the people that could be Rand could be spending time with or what he could be doing, I think Lan is the perfect, precursor, whatever it is. It's almost like it's a subtle hint, right? Because, I mean, what does he say, right? Death is lighter than a feather, duty is heavier than a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives by that. And so here he is training Rand, who he knows who he is, and there's nothing he can give him. I can't give you a way to save the world. I can't teach you to use, sating, but I can teach you that death is lighter than a feather.
Yeah.
But duty is as heavy as a mountain. And I think that's what Lan gave him, right? He understood from Lan that, like, I have a duty to fulfill, and dying is easy.
Mm-hmm. It's the easy way out.
And so I think that was, of all the people, like, right after you would find out, man, I'm the savior of the world, that's the guy to kind of help start you on your path.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And their relationship is, they don't spend a lot of time after this book together, at least for a while. But yet when they do meet up, they're just like, there's this bond there that I really like. And I think it started at the beginning, but here there's a respect for one another, right? At this point, he doesn't necessarily demean him or like, hey, sheep herder, what are you doing, you idiot? There's a respect there. And I think this is where that part starts. And they just kind of, it pops up every once in a while that they still respect each other. As powerful as Rand gets further on, he still looks to Lan as his mentor.
Exactly.
At times.
Yeah, I was going to say, that as you go through the books, you'll see a lot of Rand's mannerisms and the way he approaches problems when he's not a little on the cray-cray side, is a lot like Lan.
Yeah.
Very Warder-esque, very, very, borderland thought process. And I think that comes from his respect and mentor-like relationship with Lan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about our overall thoughts for this book 1, The Eye of the World. If you have any top 5 favorite characters or situations, things like that, I'll go first to give you guys a chance to kind of think about it. And if we have some similar ones, that's fine. Or unless one of you guys want to go first, you have a kind of a list already? Okay. So for me, for this book, Rand is my number 1. He's just the young hero. When I started reading this, I was a lot younger, and so I kind of identified with him a lot. And like, I want to be, that's the kind of guy I want to be. I want to go on this adventure and do all these cool things. So he's my favorite at this point. Which, as the series goes on, I don't like him as much. But in this book, these first couple books, I really like him. Perrin. A lot of people don't like what I do because he was the one, even though I wanted to be Brand, I was more like Perrin. Like that was more my style as a teenager, young adult, and even a little bit now. So I think, and I really liked Perrin. The more I reread the story, I tend to gravitate more towards him and what he does. Matt, obviously, he's the friend that I want to hang out with. Like a lot of my friends are like the funny, kind of similar personalities to him. So that was the guy. And like, oh yeah, I don't want to hang out with Matt. Lan, he's the guy I want to become. I didn't make it. But
neither did I.
I still admire him. And then Tom, same thing, good mentor. He watched out for the young boys. He's kind of like grandpa of the group, right? So I don't know. What do you guys think? What are some of your top 5 or favorite characters?
A lot of overlap for me. Rand, Matt, and Perrin, obviously, for very similar reasons.
Mhm.
Oddly enough, and I know this is a little bit controversial, I like Nynaeve.
Yeah.
You know, she's very bossy, right? And surprising she has any hair by the end,
Yeah.
right? She hasn't yanked it all out. But I think, are we talking about, well, maybe I should say, we're just talking about favorite characters within the scope of this book?
The book, yeah.
Okay.
First book.
Well, without foreshadowing too much, I like Nynaeve because she is a kind of a bossy person, but she does it from a place of pure caring,
Mhm.
right? I think she is the most like a strong, caring mother throughout the whole books. Well,
Right.
through all the books, right? Even in this one, right? We get to see a bigger part of Nynaeve later on and kind of what her personality turns out to be. But I think she's a great example of a strong, caring, female example that people can look up to, right?
Yeah.
Like that to me is the definition of what a strong person is.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not like her the first few times I read the book. But
Yeah.
I would say the last, again, the more I read, I start to like her a lot more. Because I'm a parent, I'm an adult, so it's kind of, I recognize the
Right,
importance.
right. And I would probably be similar. The first time I read the book, I definitely wasn't a parent.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, she's kind of a pain.
Yeah.
But I get it now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think a lot of overlap there. Lan, obviously, for me, one day I want to be like Lan, and that clearly will never happen. But yeah, I think those are probably my favorites in the book.
Okay, cool. Mark?
Oh, Sen Buey.
Got to get control of that women's circle there, Mark.
I mean, really, it's just the same group, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You read the book, really, you're reading about 7 or 8 different characters. I mean, a couple come and go, right? We see Elias.
Yeah.
He's a fun character as the story progresses. A couple other here and there.
Collard.
In this book, yeah. In this book, from what we've been able to see, I mean, Rand for sure, right? I think that the book's really geared. Everyone's going to start understanding Rand, right? He's the reluctant hero. He's the normal kid who wants to just like girls and figure girls out, and kind of a little bit of an outcast with his red hair, right? Like, I mean, he just kind of connects with most people. So
Yeah.
Rand for sure. I did not like Perrin. I don't think I actually ever liked Perrin until 6, 5, and then I hated him in the freaking Winter's Heart, and then I liked him at the end.
Yeah, he
Right,
does get frustrating.
So, but I didn't like Perrin yet. Matt, I didn't hate him, but he's just kind of a character that's there. And I think we've kind of talked about this even in the series, right? We kind of talked about the Matt effect, for his early books. Lan, right? Just like you said, everyone wants to be Lan. Like, this dude's just awesome. The quiet lone wolf hero who, just slides under and saves everyone's lives at the end. Moraine, I didn't necessarily love her. She kind of annoyed me mostly because of all the secrecy.
Yeah,
It's like, I'm just going to feed you just enough to keep you, she's really the carrot, right?
Bugs the crap out of me.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. I remember reading it and just like this. I liked Egwene, but I think I liked Egwene because I liked Rand.
Yeah.
Because I think if I separated the two and read them as separate characters, just their own story without them being together, I think she was just she would bother me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's kind of my take on the characters right now. Loyal, I didn't. Same thing. I thought he was a good character, but I didn't love him yet. There wasn't a whole lot of context there. He's just kind of running around like, look at all these world-ending events. Can I take notes, please? You're like, what the crap is wrong with you, man? Well, I think that there's a really good base, right? We got to see Gallad. We got to see... Is it Elaine?
Elaine.
Yep.
Yeah, we got to see Elaine. We got to see their mom. We got to see, a bunch of different, Icy Die come and go in here. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
A lot of cool context. I did like Agomar.
Agelmar's cool.
Yep, I did like that whole thing because I really like, for me, when I play games and when I play stuff, I really like the um, warrior societies that you run into. And so when they go there, it's like this cool warrior society, like militaristic, so I enjoyed him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So my least favorite, not necessarily that I don't like them, they're just my least favorite. Again, Nynaeve. I didn't like her at first. She's too bossy. Moraine, too mysterious, doesn't share information. Elida, she's Red Aja. She's the enemy. She's just annoying and prissy and
Elida's the worst.
yeah. And she's never like a bad. Well, I guess she's bad, but she's not
just
evil.
No, she's not evil. She's just prideful.
Yeah. Yeah.
She wants to be hot snot on a silver platter, but she's like cold boogers on a paper plate.
Yeah. And then Loyal, again, I don't like him, is just least favorite at this point. He's just kind of tag along, like Mark said, hey, can I take some notes? And he's always like, Taviran. Every time someone like, well, why did that happen? And he's in the background, Taviran.
It's like he's got a button he pushes.
Yeah.
Taviran.
But based on that, he should be our patron saint, right?
Yeah.
Oh no.
We'll have to take a soundbite from the show if he ever says that.
See, there you go.
Push it every once in a while.
I'm like you, Justin. Moraine bugs me in this book. I think she's cool with what she can do and her mission and everything else like that, and in the prequel and what she did and her mission with Swan Sanche in New Spring, right?
Yeah.
That's cool, but a little bit too much of her Kyrianan heritage for me comes out, right? And I know that's on purpose, right? With the whole game of houses, and we'll learn more about that later. It's all about how can I share just enough information to get what I need and want out of people, but withhold and play the game in my everyday life, right?
Days de Mar.
Right. It just drives me nuts. But
so at least she's consistent, right?
But she's consistent
throughout the
right?
story.
So you can expect
yeah.
That's how she is, because that's how she was raised, right?
Yeah.
And then she went to the tower, and that's basically the whole tower, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what she knows, and so I can't fault her for it,
right?
But it bugs me.
Yeah. Okay. Anything you want to add to least favorite, Mark?
Oh, my least favorite. It is the same stuff. I mean, I think it's so like they really shove you in a direction in this early book, right? And I think they do that in a way so that we can kind of start connecting with characters. And then later, as the story becomes more complex, you obviously going to start gravitating towards characters that you really love, Matt, and it's different things like that. So,
plus they introduce a lot more characters as the story goes on too.
Right, my most mysterious character at this point, like one of those side characters that you just don't know what's going on with, that kind of come and go. 100% Padden Fane.
Yeah.
I remember reading this book for the first time. I'm like, man, I don't know what this guy is, but this guy he just keeps being there, like
he's
no matter
relentless.
what. Like what the heck? I remember reading it and just being really like, I want to read more about Padden Fane. And as the books continued, I wanted to read more about Padden Fane. So he's one of those great mysterious characters. I remember noting that in like one of my first reads through. Really enjoying him.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. So let's do top 3 moments or places visited in this first book. Any favorites?
Shadar Logoth.
Yep. That's going to be on my list.
I mean, it was dark. It was scary. I mean, it was intense, right? Because they're getting chased by Trollocs, and then you got this mysterious, like, disappearing dude, and
Mashadar.
Yeah, like it was just cool, and it felt like more than just a ghost town. It was like ghost city, and so it was kind of eerie and fun.
And you got the 3 boys bumbling through. Like, hey, Marine's like, don't leave the camp. Hey, let's leave the camp.
Right.
Let's wait till they're asleep and let's leave the camp.
Right.
Camelin.
Yeah.
Was cool. Right, it's the
Yeah.
first major town that we get to see. Pretty majestic, they kind of describe it pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I definitely did like Camelin. And then last place that I would say I enjoyed. I don't know if I necessarily enjoyed it, but I liked the parallel, like it kind of brought to the dark, for the dark one was the blight.
Mhm.
Because you kind of see like that. Oh, like the dark one, he's not just an evil dude reigning from on high. Like he can affect the land. Like I mean, the land is dying simply because his presence is semi there.
Yeah.
What happens when this dude gets there? And it was just dark and like people fear it. I mean, kids are taught from a young age to try to survive it, and if you do, you touch a stick, you're done. It's
Yeah.
over,
Right.
right? So I kind of like that. I like that those kind of lands where it's obvious
Dangerous.
that you're. Yeah. So anyway, those are mine.
Any top moments from the story, like story moments?
Ooh, top moments. It's hard because there's so many moments in it that have deeper meaning, so
Yeah.
it's tough to do. Um, Top moments. I think when I'm trying to remember what happened when they kind of all get back together. Is it in Camelin when they
Camelin,
all
yeah.
meet back up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite moment because it's like, I mean, these are young kids. They've never traveled. I mean, they're like little hobbits, right? They've never
Yeah.
traveled more than 500 steps from home. They're like kind of wide eyed and the
Yeah.
world's brand new. And all they have is each other. And then they split up and they're worried about each other nonstop. They don't know, and they all have their own crazy adventures. And then they
Mhm.
come back. And you can tell that it's changed them.
Yeah.
But they are at the same time, they're so excited to see each other to have that, like that foundation from where they came from. So I really liked that part because it was kind of like they've recognized each other's change, but they realize like we need to stick together in this whole
Yeah.
new world.
Yeah. I agree. Kyle, what about you?
Um, top 3 moments or places visited. So a lot of some overlap. Shadow Logoth, way cool
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of similar reasons. Kind of the ghost city and major plot point there, right? Um, I liked. I'm like you, Mark. I kind of like whenever you're in a story, you're playing a video game or whatever. These military settlements you come upon, right? So I liked Faldara.
Yeah.
Right. I thought it's always interesting to see how different military societies are structured, right? Are they totalitarian societies? Are they Spartan-esque, right? Or, then you have the example of Faldara, right? It's interesting for me always just to see how societies who are militarily strong operate,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that was interesting. There was one more I was thinking of just a second ago. It'll come back to me. But I think one of my favorite moments that hasn't already been said was when they were exiting the ways,
Mhm.
right? And Moraine is trying to break the door open, and
Yeah.
Mashadar, right? See the Black Wind?
Machin Shin.
Machin Shin, that's what it is.
Machin Chin, yeah.
Yep, Machin
Mashadar is
Shin.
in
That's what it is. Yeah, he's in. Yeah. Anyways, when Machin Shin's coming and Moraine's trying to blast open the door, and people start hearing Machin
Yeah.
Shin, and it's really freaky, and
Yeah.
and you hear some really disturbing stuff, and
Yep.
you're like, "Holy crap! This is wind, right?" And
This is
so,
intense.
anyways, that was really cool. But yeah, I think those are some of my favorite places,
Yeah.
moments. So.
Cool. Yeah, mine is similar. Camelin, like what you talked about already. It's just their first big city they go to. They thought, what was that one city? Berlin was the big city. And then
Right,
they get to
right.
Camelin, like,
Yeah.
what? Berlin's like a little town. And just how they meet, how Rand meets Elaine, Galad, Gawain, Logain, sees Logain, that whole thing.
Mhm.
Was cool. The ways, like you guys talked about, it's dark, scary. And I like Shadow Logoth for sure, that whole, like what Mark talked about when they get the dagger, Mashadar, Trollocs. But after as well, when they split up, like I like seeing like I wouldn't have put Perrin and Egwene together, right?
Right. Yeah.
But they go off and have their own adventure and meet Elias and the traveling people, and then the worst group you could put together with Nynaeve, Moraine, at least those two, and then Lan, who she falls in love with, right? They have their adventure. They don't meet up with Logain or anything. That's Rand and Caemlyn, but they do meet. They do have their own adventure and track down the group. And then the three boys, or the two boys and Tom, they get on the ship with Balzamon, and that's a fun time. I like that.
Oh, I forgot about
Oh,
Bail
yeah.
Doman.
Yeah, they see the tower.
I like Bail Doman.
Tower of Genji.
Genji, yeah. So I like that. I guess you could say from Shadow Loga till they get to Caemlyn, then I like Caemlyn. I like the ways. I like it all. It's all good. And as I did my last reread, I just kept thinking, this book is so good. I like this part. And then I get through that part. Oh, I love this part. And it was just well written, great character development, good story development. The end kind of falls flat like we talked about, but still just the book was awesome overall. So
Yeah. I think if the end wasn't just so confusing,
yeah,
it would have been so much better.
Yeah, if it was more explained,
Exactly.
more grounded in reality instead of what you talked about.
Right.
So overall, I loved the book. I'd give it an 8.5 for my review. It's one of my favorite books in the series, just because it's introductions, but it's not long and drawn out. It's adventurous and there's fast paced. The first few chapters are kind of slow, but once it gets going, it's going.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Totally.
are your guys' overall thoughts of the book?
I love it. I mean, it's what got me into it, honestly. This is the first book I read, and it was fantastic. It, to your point, there's a good balance of background as well as action and, interesting, stories and other things like that keep you engaged, right?
Yeah.
Definitely differs from, books 6 through 10. Whew, those ones are tough. But this one is kind of what set my feet on the path, right? And so it kind of helped me and got me interested in the series. So I'd give it a solid 8.5 like you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yeah, definitely a good book. Like everyone says, right? Great introduction. We get to meet a kind of a slew of characters. We get some great character development. We start seeing where the story's going, right? We get to see the ending of the book. Yeah, it's not super climatic, but now we get to know, who's the Dragon Reborn? Here we go. I can't wait for next book. I want to know more about what's going on. So there's a lot of cool things here. I give it like a solid 8 for sure, right? Especially introduction. I don't know. I think as far as top books, is there 13, 14 books? I'd say it's in the top 4 or 5 for sure. There's definitely other books I like more in the series, but when you got to get there first, you got to start somewhere. So it's definitely a great book to start. I don't think you can go wrong. It is a little bit harder to go through. To get through because the first chapter was cool, and then it takes a little bit to get out of Emmons Field. Mm-hmm. Once you get out of Emmons Field, it picks back up.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about how the ending is a little confusing and not as strong. Is there anything that you would change besides the ending?
Oh, besides the ending.
Yeah. And I don't think it would really change it. We just kind of beef it up, like you said, Kyle, to make it more solid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the only thing I would change about the ending is have it be based more in reality. Is all, right? Not so many, he was here, and then he was here, and then he was there, and then he was here.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but in the book proper, I don't know.
Knowing what I know, I wish we could read more about Padden Fane and his thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
More excerpts of Padden Fane.
Yeah. Or even like a history of Padden Fane. Like how
his origin story, I guess.
Yeah. Not super detailed, right? Like we don't need 13 chapters on Padden Fane. Right? But to your point, Mark, I mean, I'd be interested in more information about not only his excerpts and his stuff that he does in the story, but just how he got to be what he is.
Hmm.
Okay. Anything else? I would change the Forsaken die, but not really. 'Cause they come back. I don't know. I would have changed that to be a little more. Uh, I think they died because anyway, just to be more consistent with the rest of the. Like they lived, they survived somehow. Well, they did survive some. I don't know. It just seemed it's a token death. It doesn't mean anything because they come back later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd change that somehow.
I'd make Loyal more interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
And he does get more interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but not until much, much later,
Yeah,
right?
like 4, 5, and 6, maybe.
Right.
Hmm.
But like, you got to give him more of a point than just like the note taker,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like you don't run into somebody and say, "I'm going to be your biographer," and like follow you around, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that does happen, but
Taviran.
yeah, let's get the Taviran button. But it would be,
Yeah.
I don't know how I would change Loyal though. Like maybe, see, that's the thing. I would change him, but I don't know how I would change him because I'd
Make
say
him more dynamic. Maybe?
make him more dynamic, but that kind of violates the whole
Ogier.
like Ogier mentality outside of a steading without other Ogier, right?
Well, he is the rebel of the Ogier, right?
He is.
But he's not really a rebel.
No.
So I don't know. I get what you're saying, though. Yeah.
Right? And so like, Ogier are very animated when they're stumping, right?
Yeah.
Right? They're very, very passionate arguments and everything else like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Very much more dynamic. But when they're outside of the steading, they're very like loyal.
Yeah.
And so
Well-
maybe.
The coolest thing he does is sing.
Right.
That right? I mean,
That's a good point.
and for what it's worth, the coolest thing he does is after Green Man dies, he sings this really cool song. We have no idea what the words are or anything else, but
Yeah.
he sings it, saves it. We know he's now got some type of power. He's obviously, like important enough that the Green Man knows him. But that's it, right? That's, that sums him up. So, like, if you change something, don't let his singing be the coolest thing that he does.
Yeah.
Or even if it is the coolest thing, have him do more of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or like have a fight where he picks up a Trolloc and breaks him in half or something, rips his arms off. Who knows what it is, right? But something like that, right? Like it's
Yeah.
gonna be more than we're running from Mashadar. Oh no, not Mashadar, Taviran. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, come on,
Let me
man.
take notes.
Taviran.
Let me draw a picture. Yeah.
So anyway,
Now, see, that would be, thanks for bringing that up, Mark. That would actually be something that I would change a little bit more. Is a little bit more background on Ogier singing, right? Maybe not background, but just more of it,
Yeah.
right? And so, I mean, obviously we see what it does to the Green Man, right? But I think more of it in book 1 and seeing its actual effects and what its actual power is would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything you'd change, Mark?
I'm gonna say I mentioned the Padden Fang thing. I don't know. Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool things, that were good. Couple things like we talked about with change, but overall, great book. I think tough to do too much.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, that's it for our review of book 1 of The Wheel of Time, The Eye of the World. And let us know what you think. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like I said, like the video, comment on the video if there is anything you would change, or what are your top 3 moments, who are your favorite characters, least favorite characters. Let us know in the comments, and we'll have a conversation about it. So we appreciate you guys listening and watching. Stay tuned for upcoming reviews. We'll be moving into book 2, The Great Hunt, which is also a great book, a fun book to read. So we'll talk more about that in the future. So thanks, guys, for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey guys, I'll see you later.
See ya.